Last year at this hearing, I said that the balance of power in the Indo-Pacific was shifting in China's favor. Since then, the Chinese Communist Party has significantly increased its coercive activity toward Taiwan and the Philippines. Last week, the Chinese conducted an exercise called Straight Thunder 2025A. This exercise demonstrated the extent to which the People's Liberation Army could execute a maritime blockade of Taiwan and pummel it with missile strikes. As China conducts more exercises with Taiwan in mind, it also escalates the rhetoric against the island. Last week, Chinese military officials called Taiwan's democratically elected president a parasite. The Chinese have also substantially increased their harassment of our Filipino allies. China's vast maritime militia, backed by the PLA Navy and Chinese Coast Guard, is using increasingly aggressive tactics to advance its expansive claims in the South China Sea. The second Thomas Shoal remains a major flashpoint. Chinese maritime militias have tried to keep the grounded Filipino Navy ship, the Sierra Madre, from being resupplied. Secretary Hegseth recently visited the region. I was pleased to see that he reaffirmed our mutual defense treaty with the Philippines, reminding the world that the treaty applies to attacks on the Filipino armed forces anywhere in the South China Sea. Even so, it is clear that the Chinese have been emboldened by 4 years of weakness during the past administration. There is another reason China has become so confident in its malign schemes. Xi Jinping has steadily modernized his military, and that hardware has made him more brazen. China boasts the world's largest navy and also has an air force that is capable of denying the U.S. air superiority in the first island chain. We'll certainly want to ask about that, gentlemen. Its missile force can saturate our theater defenses. China has been expanding its nuclear arsenal at a pace that far outstrips our own. Multiple STRATCOM commanders have called China's growth breathtaking. In just a few short years, Beijing has built more intercontinental ballistic missile launchers than the United States. Meanwhile, our own modernization programs languish from past neglect. But China is not the only urgent threat in the Indo-Pacific. The Biden administration chose to ignore North Korea. It allowed Kim Jong-un to increase his nuclear arsenal and project his military into European theater to aid Vladimir Putin in Russia's war against Ukraine. Kim Jong-un has abandoned the goal of unification of the Korean Peninsula, and again, we'll want to talk about that, and has declared South Korea to be the principal enemy. The North Korean nuclear and missile arsenal continues to grow and diversify, with the rogue nation adopting a strategic doctrine that embraces nuclear first use. Kim will surely seek remuneration for his support to Moscow. The Russian technology transfers and military assistance Kim receives will help him to further strengthen his strategic military forces, missile forces. The continued demonstrations of Russia, China, and North Korea aligning and cooperating should be of great concern to all the West. This concern should then lead to action. If we are to maintain global peace and stability, we must continue taking steps now to rebuild our military and reestablish deterrence. As I noted in my Peace Through Strength report last May, it's time to make a generational investment in our national security. I do believe that view is bipartisan. We must be able not only to deter and defeat the People's Liberation Army, but also to maintain deterrence in other theaters. Our adversaries, led by Beijing, are playing a global game. We must be smarter and more agile than they are across the board. Last year, Indo-PACOM's unfunded requirements list totaled $3.5 billion. This year's unfunded requirement list was $11 billion, and virtually none of that was funded under the full year CR. This is unacceptable, and also I hope we're going to get from everyone an accurate and full assessment of the various unfunded requirements. We need real growth in the FY26 budget request. In addition to a historic defense reconciliation package. We need more survivable long-range munitions, more assured U.S. command and control systems, and an improved ability to counter China's increasingly capable cyber and space systems. We need a wholesale overhaul of our logistics infrastructure and a rapid deployment of unmanned systems. We need a renaissance in our camouflage and deception programs, and we need a drastic improvement in our shipbuilding. The risk is simply too high for us to avoid making these changes. So I look forward to hearing from our distinguished and well-informed witnesses and having a candid conversation about what this committee and this Senate and this Congress can do this year to address these challenges. Senator Reid.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and Admiral Paparo, General Brunson, welcome. Thank you for appearing today, and please convey our thanks to the men and women serving under your command and defending us. This is a challenging time for our forces in the Indo-Pacific. China is deploying a wide range of military, economic, and political pressures against its neighbors while aggressively challenging America's leadership in the region. The United States does not seek conflict with China, but we have deep economic and security interests in the Indo-Pacific that must continue to be protected through strong deterrence and smart competition. Several months ago, I traveled to Guam, South Korea, and the Philippines to assess our posture in the region. I observed a number of joint military exercises, met with allied leaders, spoke with foreign business leaders, and inspected our military infrastructure. Overall, I was impressed with our progress, particularly the development of our partnership with the Philippines and the remarkable emerging partnership between Korea and Japan. These relationships should inspire us to redouble the development of networks like the Quad, AUKUS, and ASEAN as we bring other nations into our security cooperation efforts. Indeed, as countless U.S. military leaders and diplomats have told me, the key asymmetric advantage our nation has over China is our network of allies and partners. With that in mind, I'm concerned that the Trump administration is unraveling much of the progress we've made. Many observers fear that President Trump may shrink the U.S. troop presence in Korea and Japan, reduce our military exercises with both nations, and scale back plans for our joint force headquarters in Japan. Despite the fact that Korea and Japan contribute significantly to burden sharing and hosting our forces. Although the president has temporarily suspended tariffs against our closest allies and partners, the last few days have undoubtedly sown seeds of doubt about America's stability and trustworthiness, feelings that would be amplified if the president decides to reinstate the sanctions after 90 days. In addition to dismantling America's soft power tools like the U.S. Agency for International Development, President Trump's actions serve only to push our friends away from us, and that is not appropriate. Admiral Paparo, General Brunson, you engage with our foreign partners every day, both as a matter of diplomatic leadership and military necessity. I am interested in your views on how tensions with our allies would disadvantage your forces and America's interest in the region. Admiral Paparo, Taiwan remains the most dangerous flashpoint in our competition with China. We have seen a recent surge of aggressive Chinese military exercises around Taiwan's airspace and territorial waters, and the world has a right to be concerned. In several consecutive National Defense Authorization Acts, this committee has provided new security assistance tools to help develop Taiwan's capabilities and strengthen our own posture. In particular, the Taiwan Security Cooperation Initiative and the Indo-Pacific Campaigning Initiative should enable greater support and training for Taiwan and facilitate Indo-PACOM's increased exercises and freedom of navigation operations, consistent with the Taiwan Relations Act. However, your command has once again had to divert ships and aircraft for prolonged and intensive operations in the Middle East. Admiral Paparo, I would like to know your assessment of Indo-PACOM's readiness to carry out your missions, as well as the United States' broader strategy in the region. Key to America's success in the Indo-Pacific is the posture of our forces in South Korea. As I mentioned, I am encouraged by the recent progress we have seen in the trilateral relationship among South Korea, Japan, and the United States, and I hope that developments like these will provide more opportunities to engage other regional partners. As we do so, we must continue to manage the threat posed by North Korea. We know that Kim Jong-un continues to view nuclear weapons as, quote, the ultimate deterrence against foreign intervention. and he intends to gain international acceptance as a nuclear armed state. North Korea's relationships with Russia also continues to grow, especially in light of North Korea sending troops and weapons to support Putin's invasion of Ukraine. And Kim Jong-un is likely receiving technical assistance from Russia for missile and nuclear capabilities. General, I would appreciate your view on the current threat from North Korea and how your forces are maintaining readiness through training and exercises with their South Korean counterparts. Again, thank you to our witnesses. I look forward to testimonies. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We'll now recognize each of our panelists for opening statements. And General Brunson, you went first in the closed session. Would you like to do that again?
My boss says yes, so I do. Thank you for giving me at least the illusion of choice. Chairman Wicker, Ranking Member Reed, and distinguished members of this committee, thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. I'm honored to appear before you for my first posture hearing in front of this committee as the commander of United States Forces Korea Combined Forces Command and United Nations Command. I'd like to take a moment just to simply thank you all for your steadfast leadership, your friendship, and your critical support to our service members, their families, our civilians, and the contractors who support us around the globe. But I especially want to thank you for your continued time and attention to the people of the Republic of Korea and the soldiers, sailors, airmen, guardian, and Marines who serve there on the peninsula. I'd also like to thank the Korean people right now for their continued resilience through challenges and hard times. I'd like to thank them for their dedication to our alliance. And I'd also like to thank them for their continued provision of an environment that allows us to build, sustain, and retain the readiness that we develop on the peninsula. In my career, every opportunity that I've had to lead our nation's men and women has been an honor. It's a privilege to serve alongside Admiral Paparo, our friends, our partners, and allies in the region, working to strengthen our ties to further security, freedom, and prosperity amongst the nations. For over 75 years, we've invested our national treasure in the Republic of Korea and remain the last U.S. fighting force on the continent of Asia. The return on investment of U.S. forces being stationed in Korea is not measured only in dollars, but in terms of access, forward basing, enduring partnerships, and deterrence. In 2024, the DPRK focused on advancing their cruise missile and hypersonic glide vehicle research and development programs, launching 47 ballistic missiles with one failed satellite launch attempt. Kim Jong-un also has 2 highly publicized visits to nuclear sites. And over the past year and a half, DPRK has exported munitions and troops to support Russia, demonstrating the ability to provide external support while simultaneously advancing domestic capabilities. In the coming year, we expect the DPRK to further develop hypersonic and multiple independently targetable reentry vehicle MIRV capabilities to complete his 8th Party Congress goals. Kim Jong-un's leadership has shifted focus from reunification to declaring sovereignty. This change is evidenced by the hardening of DPRK's southern border, the rejection of reunification discussions, and the destruction of unification monuments and buildings. The DPRK continues to build its nuclear weapons program and boasts a Russian-equipped, augmented, modernized military force of over 1.3 million personnel. Lastly, DPRK's cyber threat is increasingly sophisticated, as demonstrated by the recent theft of approximately $1.5 billion in cryptocurrency. In contrast to that, I would speak to the ROC, U.S., Japan trilateral efforts, which are bearing much fruit, not only in ballistic missile defense, but in training and readiness developed on the peninsula. I thank you all for allowing me again to appear before you. I look forward to your questions, and thank you.
Thank you, General. Admiral Paparo.
Chairman Wicker, Ranking Member Reed, and distinguished members of the committee, thanks very much for the opportunity to appear. With me over my right shoulder is United States Indo-PACOM's senior enlisted leader, Fleet Master Chief Special Operations, Dave Isom. This is his last hearing. He's retiring after 38 years of selfless service as a SEAL and special operator. Speaking of asymmetric advantages, the NCO Corps of the United States of America is one of the Joint Forces' absolute asymmetric advantages. Fleet ISOM's leadership in this critical duty has been exemplary. It has been indispensable to my own transition as the commander of U.S. Indo-PACOM. He's been indispensable to me personally. I honor his service. In a region that's home to over half the Earth's surface and half the operational joint force, Indo-PACOM faces a confluence of challenges. China's unprecedented aggression and military modernization poses a serious threat to the homeland, our allies, and our partners. In 2024, the People's Liberation Army demonstrated growing capabilities through persistent pressure operations, with military pressure against Taiwan increasing by 300%. China's increasingly aggressive actions near Taiwan are not just exercises, they are rehearsals. And while the PLA attempts to intimidate the people of Taiwan and demonstrate coercive capabilities, these actions are backfiring, drawing increased global attention and accelerating Taiwan's own defense preparations. As General Brunson said, North Korea's development of advanced nuclear weapons and ballistic missiles pose a direct threat to our homeland and our allies, and are executing a deepening cooperation with Russia. Russia's growing military cooperation with China adds another layer of complexity, creating a compounded challenge with the deepening cooperation among China, Russia, and North Korea. And China and Russia's Pacific Fleet is a growth enterprise. U.S. Indo-PACOM deters these challenges to regional stability and competition and crisis while maintaining the availability to prevail. But that margin is eroding, as Chairman and Ranking Member have discussed. In 2024, we conducted 120 joint exercises, among them 20 major joint exercises, including not just the U.S. Joint Force, but allies and partners. We continue to strengthen the relationship with Japan, South Korea, Australia, the Philippines, India, Taiwan, the ASEAN nations, Pacific Island countries, and in fact, European partners are active in the theater. As the first priorities, we must be dominant in space and across the information environment, leveraging capabilities to counter the PRC's command, control, intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance, and targeting complex. This will enable us to gain a non-linear advantage over potential adversaries. In fact, to maintain and increase that non-linear advantage. To maintain credible deterrence, Indo-PACOM requires additional sustained investment in long-range survivable fires, in integrated air and missile defense, in force sustainment with an emphasis on autonomy and AI-driven systems. China's outproducing the United States in air, missile, maritime, and space capability and accelerating these. I remain confident in our deterrence posture, but the trajectory must change. The Pacific Deterrent Initiative should counter the China threat by investing in key readiness and capability, which would, in fact, if funded, advance the intent of this initiative and deliver major posture improvement. Deterrence remains our highest duty. However, that must be backed up by the real capability to prevail in combat. The Joint Force remains confident, resolute, and determined to prevail. Thank you for your attention. Thank you. I look forward to the questions. Thank you.
Well, thank you both for your testimony and for your service. Let's start with General Brunson. Just quickly, yes or no, North Korea continues to expand its nuclear weapons arsenal, correct?
Yes, sir.
And they continue to expand their delivery systems of nuclear weapons. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You know, you never know whether to believe what you read in the newspapers and see on the media, but there are reports that some mid-level officials in the Pentagon are considering reducing our military presence on the Korean Peninsula to focus instead on the China threat and defense of the U.S. homeland. If our strategy in Korea is to deter war and win it if we have to, would that be a good or bad idea?
Chairman, to reduce the force becomes problematic, and I won't speak to policy, but what we do provide there, sir, is the potential to impose cost in the East Sea to Russia, the potential to impose cost in the West Sea to China, and to continue to deter against North Korea as it currently stands. I'm trying to focus right now on the capabilities necessary to do all those things that we might participate routinely in the campaign that my boss is fighting, which is to prepare, deter, and then prevail in conflict should it come. But the forces in Korea play an important role. In over 75 years, they've done the same.
Admiral, a significant reduction of our military presence on the Korean Peninsula, good or bad?
Well, inherently, it would reduce our ability to prevail in conflict.
And for both of you, would a conflict on the Korean Peninsula likely involve China?
My belief is that there would be a risk that it would involve China and would have to be conducted carefully if it were so. And so that risk has got to drive our calculus.
And General Brunson?
So our preparedness would prevent them from entering in any conflict because of the potential to take them off their own party goals.
Okay, who wants to take the question about the air superiority of the PRC over ours in that theater?
Chairman, the People's Republic of China have an order of battle of 2,100 fighters, an order of battle of over 200 H-6 bombers, and they are producing fighters at a rate of 1.2 to 1 over the United States. Furthermore, their advanced air-to-air missile, long-range air-to-air missiles also present a tremendous threat. If you don't hold the high ground along the first island chain, you are vastly limited in your ability to operate. I think everybody knows the importance of the high ground. So ceding air superiority is not an option if we intend to maintain a capability against our adversaries and the ability to support our allies.
Admiral, is it a fact that China is now capable of denying U.S. air superiority in the first island chain?
I give them high marks in their ability to do that. I have some game too. And
okay.
Air superiority, air supremacy is the complete mastery of the air. Neither side will enjoy that. But it'll be my job to contest air superiority, to protect those forces that are on the first island chain, such as 3rd Marine Expeditionary Force, and also to provide windows of air superiority in order to achieve our effects.
Admiral, Kim Jong-un is not motivated by charity in helping Russia in Ukraine. What does he expect back? What's he likely to get back?
Chairman, he expects concessions. He's doing it in order to gain concessions. And those concessions would be modernization of their air defenses, specifically the MiG-29, the Su-27, advanced help for their surface-to-air missiles, quieting technology for their submarines, additional help in order to instantiate a ballistic missile submarine as well, and then likely propulsion help and potentially even help with re-entry vehicles for their burgeoning nuclear program.
Okay, thank you. We'll take another round. Let me just make sure that people understand, General Brunson. You are USA Commander, United Nations Command, Combined Forces Command, and United States Forces Korea. You do not answer at all to the United Nations headquartered in New York City, do you?
No, sir. Those authorities go through the chairman to the Secretary of Defense and then on to the president.
Okay, totally different organization. Thank you very much, and the distinguished ranking member is recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. First, let me begin by thanking the Command Master Chief for his dedicated service to the nation. Thank you, Chief. And let me associate myself with Admiral Paparo's comment that our asymmetric advantage, one of the keys, is our non-commissioned officers. Okay. General Brunson, you have indicated the importance of our forces on the Korean Peninsula. Can you also elaborate on the support and the magnitude of the burden sharing that the South Koreans contribute to us?
Yes, Senator Reid. So first, I would like to say that forward presence provides unmatched access, unmatched deterrence at minimal cost, comparatively speaking, by other forces that are stationed forward. We recently received help from the Department of Defense with our tour normalization, which brings tours in Korea on par with other OCONUS locations, which changes our exposure to the region and our understanding of the adversaries therein. I would also say that 2,100 U.S. companies have ties to the Republic of Korea. That's 450,000 jobs that are a part of that. That's a piece that I think that's critical to know and understand. Now, I would also say that we receive about $500 million a year in Korean-related construction. That builds the brand new school on Pyeongtaek at Camp Humphreys. That builds additional towers to house our families in quality housing. That also builds skiffs for us right now in the Republic of Korea that we might be able to do the important work to stay tied to Indo-PACOM. I would also like to say that in kind, the overall contribution in the past fiscal year was about 1.4 trillion won, which works out to be close to $1 billion worth of support that we receive in kind. I also mentioned the continued and growing maintenance, repair, and overhaul facilities that exist on the East Sea and the West Sea that we've utilized most recently to bring the Wali Shara back out of that overhaul and looking better than ever. The Cesar Chavez also visited recently. But there is a lot that we get. Some of it is fiscal and monetary. Others of it is material that's irreplaceable.
General Brunson, again, in previous National Defense Authorization Acts, we have established a manpower floor of 28,500 troops as a demonstration of our unwavering commitment to the U.S. Republic of Korea alliance and also the strategic reasons you said. Would you suggest we include such language again?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Admiral Paparo, can you give us your perception as the overall commander of the value of the South Korean forces to us and the presence of our troops on the peninsula together with the contributions they're making, the South Koreans?
Ranking Member, in addition to the elements laid out by General Brunson, Korea makes significant contributions outside the Korean peninsula, and that is in their participation in multilateral exercises, including Pacific Partnership, among many others. And so in the ability of that force to deter conflict, the ability of that force to avoid from having two conflicts at once, by dint of the strength of the capability, and by what they're doing in the trilateral relationship with Japan, that growing trilateral relationship with Japan, and on their path to become a global pivotal state. They are a key partner in the Western Pacific with a purview that goes far beyond just the Korean Peninsula.
Thank you very much, sir. I mentioned in my opening statement that currently you have forces that have been transferred into CENTCOM, the Carl Vinson Carrier Group. Open sources suggest 6B-2 bombers are Diego Garcia with supplementary tankers. What effect does these have on your capabilities?
Presently, for Carl Vinson, we do have George Washington coming out of Yokosuka very shortly, and Nimitz is at sea. And we have to maintain a high state of indications and warning so that we can get those forces back if there is a crisis with greater exigence than there is one in the CENTCOM AOR. And I owe the Secretary and the President constant vigilance on this and a constant awareness of that force's ability to which is assigned to U.S. Indo-PACOM, its Carl Vinson Strike Group, and a Patriot Battalion. If need be, they return to the Indo-PACOM theater for a higher priority threat.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Reid. Senator Cotton.
Gentlemen, welcome back. Admiral, let's take a step back to first principles. We've talked a lot here about the threat that China poses to Taiwan and what you're doing to try to address that threat. I'd like you to explain why that threat is so severe. You know, some people might look at the map and say, well, Taiwan is a small island and it's really far from us and it's really close to them. And China has marched into Tibet in the past and they've marched into Hong Kong in the past, and that was bad and they shouldn't have done those things. But it didn't lead to World War and it didn't lead to Great Depression. On the other side, you've got one of your ancestors, so to speak, Douglas MacArthur, who said at the dawn of the Korean War that the domination of Taiwan by an unfriendly power would be a disaster of utmost importance to the United States. He was speaking then, as we do today, of communist China. Ian Easton, a Naval War College professor and one of the military's leading experts on Taiwan, says that it's possible that the Chinese invasion of Taiwan would cause a 21st century version of the Great Depression. And the famed investor Ken Griffin put it more bluntly, it's an immediate Great Depression. So why is it that Taiwan is different? Why is Taiwan such a hot flashpoint? Why could it lead not only to a catastrophic war, but also global Great Depression? Why should Americans care about an island on the other side of the world?
Senator Cotton, that last point is quite salient. Many a research organization postulate that conflict in the Western Pacific over the Taiwan question would result in a 25% GDP contraction in Asia and a knock-on effect of 10 to 12% GDP reduction in the United States of America, with unemployment spiking 7 to 10 points above base and likely 500,000 excess deaths of despair above base as well. And this is just the importance of the regional stability to the world economy and its effect on people's lives. And this is as a function of freedom of navigation. It's a function of the world dependency on semiconductors. In the longer term, for the United States, our strategic center of gravity is our network of alliances and partners. The sum total of 350 million people's talent, 130 million Japanese, 130 million Philippines, 25 million Australians, not to mention 500 million in Europe, as well as partners in across the globe. The knock-on effect of the brittleness of that network of alliances and partnerships means that some of the states could confer and submit to the PRC's mode of exploitation en route to their long-range goal of setting the rules of the world and reaping the benefits of that. And then finally, some nations in the area of responsibility will submit, but others, it would never happen just because of the historic tensions. And in that case, the proliferation question comes to mind, with nuclear-armed states that are treaty allies with the United States and minimal warning for launch among those nuclear states. It is of vital interest for the United States. My job is to have a force ready to make those choices. You know, I don't make the choices on whether or not it's important or not. I'm explicating how it is. And my job is to present those options to the commander-in-chief to be ready to fight and win.
And to be clear, a lot, if not all of those consequences would follow whatever the outcome of a conflict over Taiwan, whether China succeeds in going for the jugular or fails, or there's some kind of indecisive outcome. Simply having the conflict over Taiwan, which is such a center of gravity in the modern economy, could lead to many of the consequences you just outlined.
Yes, sir. I can't quote the source. I will later, but most of the things I've studied indicate that American intervention would have that impact. A successful American intervention would potentially do so. So still a grave result, but half as grave with the savings of a lot of human misery.
So the key then is to prevent the war from happening in the first place. We don't want to be in a situation where we have to win a war over Taiwan. We want to stop it from happening. And the way to do that is through strong military and resolute, confident leadership. What do you need most that you don't have right now to deter that conflict from happening in the first place?
Senator, counter C5ISR capabilities in cyber, space, counterspace, to ensure that the United States can see, understand, decide, act, assess, learn faster than the PRC can, to enhance our ability to blind, to deceive, and to destroy the adversary's ability to see and sense. And then in addition, the requirement to effect those long-range fires and effects that make the joint force effective in attacking centers of gravity, the platforms that they ride on, the sustainment that sustains them, absolutely key and critical foundation, and then the critical infrastructure across the theater that enables the force to reach the principles of expanded maneuver and puts geography on our side, which it is.
Thank you.